Good afternoon, students. Hope all of you are getting my voice. Am I audible to everyone? Please comment. Okay. Okay. Okay, this is my first class of this during lockdown time. Hope all of you are doing good. So before starting the lecture, I want to say something to you. In this lockdown time, all of you know that doctors are the real heroes, and you are going to become the doctors, and you are also the uh, future heroes. So for becoming a hero, there should be dedication, passion, and hard work for your profession. So you are getting more than enough time, plenty of time. So please use this valuable time for your study, not for just not for passing the exam, but for increasing your knowledge and understanding your subject. So let's start our today's topic, that is stomach. In previous class, I had taught about the gastrointestinal tract introduction, saliva and salivary gland. So this is the next topic of the GIT, that is stomach. Total 58 attendees till now, 59, only 59 till now. So let's start the class. Okay, let's start the class. Are you able to see the slides? This is visible to everyone? Okay, so okay, this is stomach. This is between the esophagus and a small part of small intestine, first part of small intestine. Here you can appreciate this is stomach, which contains the many rugae, that is many folds inside the stomach. I am going to cover this stomach under these topics, these headings, that is functional anatomy, parts of stomach, structure of the stomach wall, glands of stomach, functions of stomach, functions of gastric juice, composition and properties of gastric juice, secretion of gastric juice, regulation of gastric juice, and gastric analysis, then applied aspect of this stomach in physiology. Okay. So stomach is a dilated part of the alimentary canal. Okay, here you can appreciate this is the dilated part of alimentary canal between the esophagus and first part of the small intestine, that is duodenum. It is a muscular sac. It is J-shaped. Okay. The stomach is a muscular hollow organ in the gastrointestinal tract of humans. Okay. It is between the esophagus and duodenum. It is present in the left upper part of the abdominal cavity. The top of stomach lies against the diaphragm. Okay, here I can appreciate the top of stomach lies against the diaphragm, and this is pancreas, which is lying behind the stomach. Okay. So this is the functional anatomy. Functional anatomy is between the esophagus and duodenum. Upper part is on the diaphragm, and pancreas is lying behind the stomach. Okay. Now coming to the parts of stomach. The stomach is divided into 4 parts. First is the cardia, where the esophagus, here you can appreciate esophagus opens into the stomach. That part is called the cardia of stomach. Then fundus, which is above the cardial orifice of the stomach. And then body, which is the largest region of the stomach. And then pyloric part, which is divided into pyloric antrum and pyloric canal. Okay. So this is the cardiac part of stomach, where the esophagus opens, fundus, which is above the cardial surface, body, which is the largest region of the stomach, and pyloric part, which is divided into pyloric antrum and pyloric canal. It is the stomach has 2 curvature. One is the lesser curvature, and outer side is the greater curvature. The stomach contains the manifold which is called the rugae, but when the stomach is distended, there is a no rugae present in the stomach. Okay, when stomach is distended, when food is present inside the stomach, it will be distended and there will be no rugae inside the stomach. Okay. Now coming to the structure of stomach wall, as I already described about the structure of GIT. Everyone knows there are layers of GIT, same as here stomach is also part of GIT. So there are the layers. Serosa, which is made up of the visceral peritoneum. What is visceral peritoneum? Peritoneum is divided into parietal and visceral part. Parietal, which is surrounds the abdominal cavity, and visceral, which surrounds the internal organs. So it is made up of serosa is made up of visceral peritoneum. Okay. After serosa, there is layers of muscles: longitudinal muscle, circular muscle layer, and oblique muscle layer. And I already told that in between the longitudinal circular muscle there is a orbex plexus, which is also called the mesenteric nerve plexus present. After that, there is a submucosa. Submucosa also contains the blood vessels and nerve vessels, nerve plexus, and nerve plexus which is present in the submucosa is called the, what is the that called nerve plexus present in the submucosa? Can anyone tell me? Orbex plexus called as the mesenteric nerve plexus. So what is the nerve plexus present in the submucosa is called? Can anyone answer? That is called the Meesner's nerve plexus. Okay. Then there is a muscularis mucosa, then gastric gland. Okay. Hello. Slides are visible. Okay. Gastric gland. Okay, this gastric gland is present in the mucosal region, and this gastric gland is the most important structure present in the stomach. Okay, because all the gastric secretion are coming from these gastric glands. This gastric gland opens into the gastric pit, which is also called the fovea gastrici. Okay. Now coming in the gastric gland, this is the time to know about the detail about the gastric gland. There are glands, that is cardiac gland. This cardiac glands are, as the name suggests, where it will be present. Cardiac gland which will be present in the cardiac part of the stomach. Okay, and only cardiac glands are found here in the cardiac region, and they are primarily secrete the mucus, and they are fewer in number. Okay, they are fewer in number than the other gastric glands and more shallowly positioned in the mucosa. So cardiac gland which is present in the cardia of the stomach are fewer in number, matlab less in number. They are of two kinds: simple tubular with short ducts or compound racemose. There are two types, that is simple tubular and compound racemose. This compound racemose resembles with the duodenal Brunner's gland. I will tell about this duodenal Brunner's gland later in the small intestine. Okay. So this is the cardiac gland, where the cardiac glands are present in the cardiac region, which are fewer in number. And then coming to the fundic gland. Fundic gland is also called the auxentic glands, are found in the fundus and body of stomach. They are simple, almost straight tubes, two or more of which open into the small ducts. Okay. So fundic glands, which is also called the auxentic glands, secrete the hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. Fundic gland present two cells, parietal cells and chief cells. That parietal cells secrete the hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor, and chief cells secrete the pepsinogen. Now coming to the pyloric glands are located in the antrum. As I already told that the pyloric part is divided into pyloric antrum and pyloric canal. So these pyloric glands present mainly in the antrum, which contains the G cells, and these G cells secrete the gastrin. Okay. So this is the pyloric gland and this is the oxyntic gland. Here you can appreciate oxyntic gland. There are main specific cells present in this oxyntic gland is the chief cells and parietal cells. Okay, and pyloric gland specific cell which is present in the pyloric gland is the G cells. G cells which secrete the gastrin. Okay. Got it, everyone? Everyone is getting my voice? Okay. So other cells like surface mucus cells, mucous neck cells, as the name suggests, it secretes the mucus, is present in the both the gland, pyloric gland and oxyntic gland. These pyloric and oxyntic glands are more in number and cardiac glands are fewer in number, so they are the main responsible for the gastric juice secretion. So surface mucus cells, mucous neck cells are present in both the glands. G cells present specifically in the pyloric gland. D cells also present in the both the gland, pyloric and the oxyntic gland. And mast cell, which is also called the enterochromaffin cells, is also present in the both the glands. Okay. Now coming to the next slide. Mucous neck cells. Mucous neck cells present in all the glands, cardiac glands, pyloric gland and fundic gland. So these cells secrete the mucus. Okay. These cells secrete the mucus, which stimulus for this release is the tonic secretion with irritation to the mucosa. If there is any irritation to the mucosa, mucus will be secreted. The mucus, what will be the action of mucus? It helps in the lubrication. So physical barrier between the lumen and epithelium. And mucous neck cells also secrete the bicarbonate, which is secreted with mucus. Means whenever there is irritation, there is mucus secreted, and bicarbonate will be secreted with the mucus. And bicarbonate, obviously it is alkaline in nature, so it buffers the gastric acid to prevent damage to epithelium. So role of mucus and bicarbonate is the protective function. Now coming to the parietal cells. Parietal cells which will be present in the, where it will be present? Can anyone tell me parietal cell present in which gland? Parietal cells present in which gland? I already told you. It will be present in fundic or oxyntic. Okay, good. It will be present in the fundic gland, which is also called the oxyntic glands. Okay. So it secretes the HCl and intrinsic factor. A stimulus for this release is the acetylcholine, gastrin and histamine. So what is the stimulus for secretion of parietal cells? Acetylcholine, gastrin and histamine. This activates the pepsin. Okay, this HCl activates the pepsin. It will be it comes from the chief cells in the form of inactive form, that is pepsinogen. Okay, which kills the bacteria. And intrinsic factor which combines with the vitamin B12 to permit the absorption. Means vitamin B12 which is necessary for the erythropoiesis. So whenever there is the intrinsic factor, if intrinsic factor is deficient, it will not bind with the vitamin B12, and vitamin B12 which is the maturation factor for the erythropoiesis. So there will be destruction in the erythropoiesis procedure. So they may lead to the pernicious anemia. Okay, so parietal cells secrete the HCl and intrinsic factor. Now coming to the enterochromaffin cells, which is also called the mast cell, which secrete the histamine. Its stimulus is the acetylcholine and gastrin. Stimulates the gastric acid secretion. Now coming to the chief cells. Chief cells present in the chief cells secrete. It is also present in the fundic region, which secrete the pepsinogen, which is the inactive form of the pepsin, which will active in presence of the HCl, means in acidic environment it will be activated and it will help in digestion of protein. Okay, gastric lipase, which stimulus factor for this is the acetylcholine in acidic secretion. So it lipase means it will help in digestion of fats. Okay, now coming to the D cell. Okay, D cell present in the all D cell present in the fundic gland and as well as the pyloric gland. Okay, it secretes the somatostatin and stimulus for this is the acid in stomach. Somatostatin is a controlling the gastric acid secretion, means it inhibits the gastric acid secretion. Okay, now coming to the G cells. G cell, which is present in the G cells present in the which gland? Pyloric gland. It secretes the gastrin. Its stimulus is the acetylcholine, peptide and amino acid. It stimulates the gastric acid secretion. Okay, hope everything is clear till now. Now coming to the next topic. Here we can appreciate where the all cells present: parietal cells and chief cells, which is present in the fundic glands, and fundic glands present on the fundus region and body of the stomach. And here you can appreciate G cells. G cells present in the pyloric part, mainly in the antrum region. Pyloric part is divided into pyloric antrum, pyloric gland, and these mucous cells present in all the glands. Okay. Now coming to the composition of the gastric secretion. Gastric juice is a mixture of water, HCl. HCl which is the most important component of this gastric secretion. Contains the electrolyte and organic substances. Gastric juice is 97 to 99% water. The remainder consists of inorganic salts, organic component that include mucin and digestive enzymes. Okay. Gastric juice. Gastric juice contains the 99.5% water, means 97 to 99% water, solids 0.5%. These 0.5% solid contains the organic substances, which include the enzymes that are pepsin, which is secreted from the chief cell in an active form in epsinogen, which will be active in acidic environment, renin, gastric lipase, gelatinase and urease. Other organic substance: mucus, intrinsic factor, mucus from the mucous neck cells, intrinsic factor from the parietal cells. Inorganic substance from the oxyntic gland, hydrochloric acid, sodium, calcium, potassium, bicarbonate from the mucous cells, which buffers the acidic environment of the gastric juice, so helps in acts as a protective function, and chloride, phosphate and sulfate. Concentration of HCl is up to 155 or 150 to 160 milliequivalent per liter. Okay, hope it is clear till now. Now coming to the properties of the gastric juice. Contents of the normal gastric juice: volume 1 to 1.5 liter. Its nature is acidic. Constituents: water 99.5%, solid 0.5%, inorganic constituent I already told you, organic I already told you. Now coming to the each and every role of each and every secretion, function of each and every secretion. Gastric juice: muscular wall churns food into chyme. Stored food for 2 to 6 hours, absorbs glucose and alcohol. Hydrochloric acid, acidic medium for enzyme action, kills bacteria brought in with the food, activates enzyme. So hydrochloric acid is helpful for the acidic environment, and some enzymes are acting only in the acidic environment. Water as a solvent and for hydrolysis, and mucus protect the stomach wall and acts as a lubricant for movement of food into stomach. Pepsin, which is helpful for protein digestion into polypeptide. Rennin converts protein into insoluble curds, coagulates milk for hydrolysis of pepsin. Some students are still coming. For latecomers, I want to tell, till now I had completed the functional anatomy of stomach and parts of stomach, then glands of stomach, then composition and properties of the stomach. So now I am going to tell about the functions of stomach. Stomach is a muscular sac in the upper left abdominal cavity, immediately inferior to diaphragm. Its primary function is the storage function, okay, designed to release a small volume into duodenum. Internal volume is 50 ml when empty, but when there is a typical meal, its volume is 1 to 1.5 liter, up to 4 liter when extremely full, and extend nearly as far as the pelvis. So okay. So when it is extremely full, no rugae present inside the stomach. Takes approximately 4 hours to clear meal. Means food can store for 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours. Antrum holds the 30 ml of food. Okay. 3 ml of chyme released into duodenum per contraction. After every contraction, 3 ml of chyme is released. What is chyme? Chyme, it is a when due to peristaltic movement of stomach, mix the bolus into gastric juice. This gastric juice turns the solid food into semi-solid material, that is known as chyme. So chyme, so muscular movement or the peristaltic movement of the stomach helps in formation of chyme. This chyme is a soupy or pasty mixture of semi-digested food in the stomach. Okay. Now coming to the chemical digestion. Am I audible to everyone? Slides are visible. Video is paused at slide 10. Are you able to see the slides? This is slide 10. Okay. Okay. So now coming to the chemical digestion. Chemical digestion, salivary amylase deactivate by the gastric acid. What will be the help of amylase? Carbohydrate metabolism, lingual and gastric lipase activated by the gastric acid. Role of this lipase fatty acid fat metabolism. Gastric HCl denatures protein or kills the microorganism. Gastric pepsinogen converted by gastric HCl into active pepsin, which helps in the protein metabolism. Most digestion occur after chyme passes into the small intestine. Okay. So this is the mechanical function, chemical function. Now coming to the protective function. Protective function, mucus and bicarbonate, which is secreted from the mucus cells. So mucus is a mucoprotein secreted by the mucous neck cells of the gastric gland or the surface mucous cells of the fundus body and other parts of stomach. It protects the gastric wall by the following ways. Mucus protects the mucosa stomach wall from irritation of mechanical injury. Means whenever there is any kind of irritation, mucus will be secreted and prevents the digestive action of pepsin on the wall of stomach, particularly in the gastric mucosa, and protects the gastric mucosa from hydrochloric acid of the gastric juice because of its alkaline in nature. So this is the protective function, and bicarbonate also by buffering the acidic environment helps in the protective function. Digestive function, I will tell about digestive function in while I will tell about the function of gastric juice. And hemopoietic function, as all of you know, parietal cells secrete the intrinsic factor, and vitamin B12, which is bind with the protein. But whenever there is a pancreatic activity, so that intrinsic factor bind with the vitamin B12, and vitamin B12 which is necessary for the maturation factor, maturation factor of erythropoiesis, so it helps in the hemopoiesis. Okay, excretory function, some alkaloid, some toxins and metals are secreted from the stomach. This is a digestive function of the pancreatic gastric juices. So it contains the pepsin, which is a major proteolytic enzyme secreted as a pepsinogen, which is an inactive, but it will be active in acidic environment. Products proteose, peptones and polypeptide. And gastric lipase, weak lipolytic enzyme, hydrolyzes fats into fatty acid and glycerol. Okay. Others are urease, acts on urea and produce the ammonia, and renin, which curdles the milk, and gelatinase, which convert the gelatin into polypeptide. So this is the digestive function of the gastric juices. Now coming to the next function, that is hemopoietic, protective. Everyone know about the hemopoietic, protective. I already described in previous slides. Now coming to the function of HCl. HCl activates the pepsinogen. Already told you, it provides us a medium in which the pepsin acts optimally. It reducing the large food particle into smaller particle. It helps in the formation of chyme. Denatures protein. It kills microorganism ingested with food. And HCl is the most important secretion of this stomach. So now coming to, I will tell you about detail in HCl in later slides. Okay, so secretion of gastric juice. Gastric secretion, the digestive fluid secreted by the glands of stomach. It is a thin, colorless, acidic liquid containing the primarily hydrochloric acid, pepsinogen and intrinsic factor plus mucus. Gastric juice convert the gastric content to a semi-solid mass called chyme. Its pH is 0.7 to 3.8. It is acidic in nature. Now coming to the pepsinogen secretion. Pepsinogen, which is secreted by the chief cells in the gastric gland and mucus cells. Some amount from the mucus cells also. Chief cells, which is present in the fundic glands. Fundic gland, which is present in the fundus and the body of the stomach. There are two types of the chief cells. That is group 1 chief cells of there are two types of pepsinogen. Group 1 chief cells of the corpus, and group 2 which is secreted from the chief cells plus mucus neck cells in all parts. So this pepsinogen is formed from the amino acid in ribosomes which is attached with the endoplasmic reticulum. Here in this diagram you can appreciate this is the chief cell which contains a ribosome, and this ribosome is attached to the endoplasmic reticulum. With the help of amino acid, this pepsinogen forms. When this pepsinogen formed, it will be stored in this zymogen granules. Here you can appreciate this is a zymogen granules. But when this zymogen granules secreted into the lumen or canaliculi, this will be excreted through the help of exocytosis. Okay, everyone clear? This pepsinogen is stored in this zymogen granules. Okay. Now coming to know about its stimulating factors. Two signals stimulate the secretion. Vagal stimulation as mediated by the acetylcholine, and direct response to gastric acid. About vagal and gastric direct response, I will tell you about each and everything in later slides. Okay. Now coming to the intrinsic factor. So intrinsic factor, which is also secreted by the parietal cells. Stomach dietary vitamin B12 bound by the vitamin B12 binding protein. Okay, it's vitamin B12 bound by the binding protein present in the gastric juice. And in the duodenum, this pancreatic proteases digest the binding protein, so releases the vitamin B12. This vitamin B12 bind with the intrinsic factor in ileum and it will be absorbed. In intrinsic factor vitamin B12 complex, it will be absorbed. This is the only indispensable substance in the gastric juice. Okay, so ileal disease, resection or atrophic gastritis, there will be lack of vitamin B12 which leads to pernicious anemia. I hope about intrinsic factor everything will be clear to everyone. Stomach, it will be present in the bound form. Duodenum, there is activity of the pancreatic protease which releases the vitamin B12, and ileum, there is a bondation complex between the intrinsic factor and vitamin B12 which acts as a maturation factor for erythropoiesis. When there is any kind of disease like ileal disease and resection or the atrophic gastritis, there is a lack of vitamin B12 which leads to pernicious anemia. Okay, so till now I had completed the secretion, pepsinogen and intrinsic factor secretion. Now coming to the renin secretion. Okay, renin is also called the chymosin. It is a proteolytic enzyme which causes milk to curdle in the stomach. Milk retain in stomach and release more slowly. Okay, renin secretion maximal first few days after birth, because initial years newborns are totally dependent on the milk. So initial year there is a more renin secretion and replaced by secretion of pepsin as major gastric proteases. Okay, and secreted as an inactive proenzyme prochymosin, which is activated on exposure of acid. So here you also you can see there is a acidic environment required for renin activity or renin action. So for this acidic environment, what you will require? HCl require. So HCl is the most important component of stomach. Now coming to the next, HCl. Our hero of this presentation is HCl. Now coming to know about the HCl and the question which is frequently asked about HCl is the mechanism of secretion of HCl. Okay. Okay, HCl, which is hydrochloric acid. HCl, which is formed from the villus-like projection of the canaliculi, which are continuous with the lumen. Here in this diagram, you can appreciate. This is the parietal cells or oxyntic cells, which contains the many villus-like projection where the HCl forms, and from there it will be secreted into the oxyntic gland from the body of stomach. So the pH of this secretion at this time is 0.8, and hydrogen ion which is present in the parietal cells is 3 times more than the that of blood. Okay, and for maintaining this acidic environment there is a requirement of 1500 calorie per liter is required. Okay, so HCl which is present in the parietal cell is 155 milliequivalent per liter. Okay, now coming to know about the mechanism of secretion of HCl. Hope all of you are getting me. Everyone is getting me, hope. Slides are visible to everyone. Please comment. Okay, Amritmay. Okay, now coming to the mechanism of secretion of HCl. It is most important topic of this stomach and it is frequently asked question. So please be attentive during when I'm going to teach you about this slide. Okay, so this is the secretion of HCl, mechanism of secretion of HCl. Here you can appreciate this is the parietal cells. Here one right side there is a lumen of canaliculus and left side there is extracellular fluid. These parietal cells, villus like projection from these parietal cells, there is a secretion of HCl. Okay, here you can appreciate there is CO2. From where this CO2 comes? This CO2 comes from either by the metabolic activity or by directly from the blood. Okay, CO2 comes from the metabolic activity or directly from the blood, and water which is present in the parietal cells, which will be divided into hydrogen ion and hydroxyl ion. This hydroxyl ion bound with this carbon dioxide. Okay, everyone is able to see this. There is a formation of bicarbonic acid. Okay, with the help of carbonic anhydrase enzyme, these carbonic anhydrase enzyme present in plenty of number in this parietal cell. These carbonic anhydrase, in presence of this carbonic anhydrase enzyme, there is a formation of bicarbonic acid. This bicarbonic acid is highly unstable compound which will be divided into H plus ion and SCO3 ion. Okay, this bicarbonate ion is this SCO3 ion is goes back into the extracellular fluid, and this hydrogen ion is actively transported into the lumen of canaliculus. When this HCO3 ion comes into the extracellular fluid, at the same time here you can appreciate the chloride ion is actively a lot of disturbance I am facing during presentation. Okay, the chloride ion comes from the blood into the parietal cells, and from there the lumen of canaliculus. Okay, the chloride ion is actively transported into the canaliculi of parietal cells. Okay, so there is H plus ion and chloride ion, so there is formation of HCl. But when this chloride ion actively transported from parietal cells to the lumen of canaliculi, at the same time sodium is absorbed actively from the lumen of canaliculi to the parietal cells. By these two effects means when chloride comes out and sodium is absorbed, there is a negative potential generated, which is minus 40 to minus 70 millivolt. So for balancing it, there is a diffusion of potassium and sodium is actively transported into the parietal cells. Okay, so whenever there is a hydrogen ion actively transported into the canaliculi, there is a potassium is actively transported into the parietal cell with the help of proton pump, all the hydrogen potassium ATPase. So whatever the amount of sodium and potassium is transported into canaliculi, most of them is reabsorbed into the parietal cells. There is a more number of hydrogen and more number of the chloride, so there is a formation of HCl. So there is a acidic environment of the canaliculi, and final amount of this HCl is a 150 milliequivalent per liter. Hope all of you are getting it. If there is any kind of repetition, you can ask me, I will repeat it again, because this is most important question. Got it? Everyone know? Everyone can tell me about the mechanism of secretion of HCl? Okay, so this is the another way of describing the mechanism of HCl. Okay, I am going to repeat as Pranjal is telling me to repeat the mechanism of HCl. So again, you can see there is CO2. This CO2 comes from either the metabolic activity or from the blood, and water which is present in the parietal cells. These carbon dioxide and H2O forms this carbon dioxide present and H2O present. This H2O is divided into hydrogen ion and hydroxyl ion, which ultimately with the help of carbonic anhydrase enzyme there is a formation of the carbonic acid. This carbonic acid is highly unstable compound which will be divided into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion. This hydrogen ion comes in the lumen of the canaliculi, and when this HCO3 ion comes out of the extracellular from the parietal cell and comes in the extracellular fluid, at the same time chloride is actively transported from the extracellular fluid to the parietal cells and from there to the lumen of canaliculus. So there is a H plus and Cl which is required for the HCl formation. Okay, but when the chloride is actively transported from the parietal cells into the lumen of canaliculus, at the same time sodium is absorbed actively. So by these two effects, there is a generation of negative potential, that is minus 40 to minus 70 millimole. For balancing these, there is a diffusion of potassium and some amount of the sodium. Okay, and as well as whenever there is a hydrogen comes out of the parietal cells into the lumen of canaliculus, some sodium is actively transferred into the parietal cells with the help of hydrogen potassium ATPase. So whatever the amount of potassium and sodium is actively transported, that is again reabsorbed into the parietal cells. So there is a high concentration of H plus as well as chloride ion. So there is a formation of HCl ion. So these and which is responsible for the acidic environment. Okay, now everyone got it? Okay, I am going on the further slides. Here this is another way for understanding the HCl secretion. Here acetylcholine, histamine and gastrin, these are the stimulating factor for the parietal cell, and these parietal cells as H2S Ca2 with the help of carbonic anhydrase, there is a formation of bicarbonic acid. There is a formation of carbonic acid, and this carbonic acid convert into the HCO3 ion and H plus ion. Whenever then this HCO3 ion into the blood, chloride comes inside the parietal cell, then into the chloride into the lumen, and this H plus ion comes into the lumen of the gastric fluid. So here you can appreciate there is a more amount of H plus and more amount of chloride ion. So there is a HCl formation, and potassium which is actively transported is again reabsorbed into the parietal cell. So there is a mainly the hydrogen ion and chloride ion into the lumen of the canalicus. Hope everyone is getting my slides. Okay. So this is the mechanism HCl secretion. Carbonic anhydrase helps in the formation of H2CO3 with the help of CO2 and H2O within the parietal cells. H2CO3 divided into H plus HCO3 ion, and this H plus hydrogen ion comes into the canaliculi by the help of the H plus potassium ATPase. Potassium ion is again reabsorbed into the parietal cell, and with the and these H plus and chloride and ultimately helps in formation of the hydrochloric acid formation. So what are the factors stimulating for the HCl secretion? Stimulating factor: gastrin, histamine, vagal stimulation. Vagal stimulation means there is after vagal stimulation there is secretion of acetylcholine, and this acetylcholine is ultimately helpful for the stimulating factor for of gastric secretion or the HCl secretion. And what are the inhibitory factor? Secretin and somatostatin, which is secreted by the D cells, and gastric inhibitory peptide. Okay, so these are the stimulating and inhibitory factor. Now coming to the control of HCl secretion. So here in this slide you can appreciate there is a food in the stomach. Whenever there is a food in the stomach, there is a vagal stimulation. So vagal stimulation and gastric distension. When there is a gastric distension, it activates the G cell. Vagal stimulation also activates the G cells, and products of protein digestion like peptides and amino acid also activate the G cell, and these G cells secrete the gastrin, and this gastrin activates the parietal cells of stomach, and these parietal cells secrete the HCl. But whenever there is a HCl secretion, there is a high acidic environment, which also there is auto regulation of gastric secretion, and these inhibit the G cells of the stomach. Okay, whenever there is a high acidic gastric content, there is a auto regulation of gastric secretion which inhibit the G cells of stomach, and intestinal hormone secretes like GIP, VIP means gastric inhibitory peptide, inhibit VIP, somatostatin, secretin, and glucagon all again inhibit the G cells of the stomach. Okay, and HCl secretion, there is a acidic duodenal chyme which also activate the intestinal hormone. And intestinal hormone like GIP or vasoinactive inhibitory peptides, vasoactive inhibitory peptides, gastric inhibitory peptides, secreting glucagon, somatostatin, these hormones inhibit the G cells of the stomach. So there is a control of HCl secretion. Some are increasing factor and some are the inhibiting factor. Okay, now coming to the regulation of the gastric secretion and motility. So this is also very important. There are three phases of the gastric secretion: cephalic phase, gastric phase, and intestinal phase. Cephalic phase, as the name itself suggests, when it is associated with the cephalus or head, it is called the cephalic phase. Like sight, smell, taste, and thought initiate the reflex. Means pizza is in front of you, so only by seeing the pizza there are stimulating reaction. Cephalic phase is activated. Only by the smelling of food, only by your favorite foods like pizza or anything which you like is coming in front of you, or you already know the taste of that particular food, there is cephalic phase activated. Or thought of food, sometimes like मेरे को तो रसमलाई खाना है, तो just by thought of the rasmalai there is an increasing secretion, so that is comes under the cephalic phase. So what is responsible for that cephalic phase? Cortex and hypothalamus and impulse to the medulla. Okay, so whenever there is sight, smell, taste, or thought, all the sensory nerve fiber activate the cerebral cortex and then into the dorsal nucleus of vagus, and then vagus sensory efferent fiber comes and which activates vagus nerve, which activated will ultimately responsible for secretion of the acetylcholine, and this acetylcholine is responsible for the secretion of the gastric juice and also for the peristalsis of stomach, also secrete the pepsinogen, HCl, mucus, and gastric gland. In cephalic phase, which is totally under the nervous control, which is vagus nerve, there are two types: conditioned reflex and unconditioned reflex. What is unconditioned reflex? Unconditioned, here you can, in this diagram you can appreciate, you can understand the unconditioned. Here in this diagram you can, in this picture you can see that dog, there is food is placed in front of dog, and but dog doesn't know that this is food. So whenever the whistle, we are doing whistling, so there is no response because vagus nerve is not stimulated. So this is before conditioning. This is unconditioned reflex, unconditioned response. But whenever there is a food with a whistle in front of food, in front of a dog, now dogs know that this is a food, and he knows the how the food looks and how it tastes, what is its taste. So this is a conditioning. So whenever there is a whistling, there is a secretion. This is called the conditioned reflex. Okay, so here in this gastric secretion, how we can understand this conditioned and unconditioned reflex? Unconditioned reflex, which is also called the inborn reflex. Okay, whenever the food is placed into the mouth, salivary glands already salivary glands are present. So the nerve like glossopharyngeal nerve and facial nerve, from there sensation is transferred from the to the amygdala and appetite center of the hypothalamus, and from hypothalamus to the dorsal nucleus of vagus. So ultimately vagus is activated, and by activating that vagus there is a secretion of the acetylcholine. And then the conditioned reflex. Conditioned reflex, when subject already know the stomach, or the person already know the smell, sight, thought of food. So there is also the center is the brain, means vagus nerve. Here all the sensory efferent nerve is sent to the vagus, and from there into the cerebral cortex, and from there to dorsal nucleus of vagus. Ultimately vagus is stimulated, so it will secrete the acetylcholine. So this is the conditioned reflex. And unconditioned reflex, where the food is unless and until food will not be placed in the stomach, there will be no reflex, no acidic secretion, no gastric secretion. But conditioned reflex, only by the smell, sight, thought of food there will be gastric secretion, means vagus nerve is important in both, but here it is unconditioned and this is the conditioned one. Okay, hope everyone is getting the conditioned and non-conditioned one. Now coming to the gastric phase. Gastric phase, where the stress receptors detect the distension of stomach. Now voice is clear Amritmay, are you getting my voice? Amritmay, are you getting my voice clearly? Okay, regulation. First is the cephalic phase, where the conditioned and the unconditioned reflex. Ultimately center is the vagus nerve. Then the gastric phase. Gastric phase, stress receptor detect the distension of stomach, means whenever the food in the stomach, there is distension of stomach, which is detected by the stress receptors in the gastric phase. And chemoreceptor detect the increased pH of the gastric juice, which stimulate the stomach churning in and secreting. Okay, churning means churning means formation of chyme. And acetylcholine from the parasympathetic activity stimulates the gastric juice secretion, and stimulate the stomach motility. It is under the nervous control as well as the hormonal control. Here the cephalic phase is totally under the nervous control, and gastric phase is under the nervous and hormonal control. How it is nervous control? Already you know there are a local plexus present in the gastrointestinal tract, and in stomach also there is a mesenteric nerve plexus and Meesner's nerve plexus. Whenever the food is inside the stomach, these nerve plexus will be activated, and which will release the acetylcholine, and this will activate in secretion of the gastric juice. And hormonal, and there is a activation of the G cells, which G cells secrete the gastrin, and this gastrin hormone ultimately acts as a stimulant for the gastric juice secretion. Okay, now coming to the intestinal phase. Intestinal phase, whenever the a small amount of food comes inside the intestine, there is a more amount of the gastric juice secretion, but later phases there is a less amount of secretion, means there is a auto regulation. How it helps? Stress receptor detect the distension of duodenum. Okay, here also stress receptor detect the distension of duodenum, and chemoreceptor detect the fatty acid and glucose in the duodenum, and impulses from the small intestine inhibit the stomach secretion and motility. Later phase, small intestine inhibit the stomach secretion and motility. How it will stimulate the less secretion? Gastric inhibitory peptide. There is a more release of the gastric inhibitory peptide, so which inhibit the gastric secretion and gastric motility in the stomach. And secretin and decreases the gastric secretion, and cholecystokinin which also inhibit the stomach emptying and inhibit the gastric secretion and gastric motility in the stomach. So there are three phases: cephalic phase, gastric phase and intestinal phase. Cephalic phase is totally under the nervous control, gastric phase under the nervous and the hormonal control. Intestinal phase, there is also hormonal control. Okay, cephalic phase. Here in this diagram you can appreciate what gastric phase, cephalic phase, gastric phase and the intestinal phase. Here you can see by the sight, only by seeing the food, only by smelling the food, by tasting the food, or by only by the thought of food, there is a cephalic phase. Vagus nerve stimulate the secretion of the gastric juice. Okay, and gastric phase, there is a secretion of gastrin by stimulating the G cells of the stomach, and food in the stomach stimulate the secretion of hormone, and in blood stimulate the secretion of the gastric juice. And after that there is a intestinal phase. The secretion of secretin and cholecystokinin. Food in the duodenum stimulate the secretion of hormone. Which hormone? Secretin and cholecystokinin, which ultimately reduce the gastric motility and secretion of the gastric juice. So there is a regulation of the gastric secretion is happened in the stomach by the gastric phase, cephalic phase and the intestinal phase. Now coming to the method to study the gastric secretion in experimental animals, usually in dogs. One picture I already show you about the bell dog experiment. Okay, first is the Pavlov's pouch. This is the experimental study for understanding the regulation of the secretion of the gastric juice. What will be done in this Pavlov's pouch? The pouch is made out of the stomach. Okay, pouch is made out of the stomach in the dog in a such a way that the pouch opens through the skin to the exterior, but it is still connected to the main body of the stomach by the stomach. Okay, means there is a pouch is separated from the stomach, but it is connected to the stomach with the stomach or bridge. This pouch helps in collection of the pure gastric juice uncontaminated by the food. Being a part of main stomach, there is a blood supply and nerve supply is intact. So it is very useful for study of various phases of the gastric secretion and their regulation. Okay, so there is a stomach is formed, pouch is separated, but vagus nerve supply is intact and blood supply is intact, means both parasympathetic and sympathetic supply is intact. So these Pavlov's pouch is helpful for understanding the significance of the mainly the cephalic phase as well as the gastric phase of regulation of this gastric acid secretion. Okay, second is the hidden hand pouch. In this pouch, there is a pouch is separated from the stomach, and they are joined by the stomach. Here the nerve supply is going to be cut. There is an incision, only blood supply is intact. So it is also very useful to study the gastric secretion, especially to study the effect of absence of agal influence of gastric secretion. Means there is no vagal nerve supply. So if there is a vagotomy, so what will be the effect on the gastric secretion? So this will also know the significance of the cephalic phase on the gastric secretion. Okay, hope everyone is getting me. Pavlov's pouch, hidden hand pouch. Now coming to the Bickel's pouch and Ferrell IV pouch. Before that, here in this diagram you can appreciate this is a normal stomach. Okay, and this is the Pavlov's pouch. What we had done, what the experiment is done here, the pouch is separated from the stomach. Okay, but through the stomach they are connected with the stomach, and blood supply, nerve supply is intact. So this Pavlov's pouch is helpful for understanding the secretion during the cephalic phase, means understanding the role of vagal as well as the sympathetic and the parasympathetic stimulation. And hidden hand pouch, here you can appreciate there is a pouch is separated, both are attached with the stomach, but there is a, here you can see the dotted line which is vagus nerve, which is degenerated, only the blood supply is intact. So this is helpful for understanding the role of hormones in the, means role of gastrin hormones in role of gastric acid secretion. So this is helpful in understanding the gastric phase. Okay, now coming to the Bickel's pouch, it is nothing but the hidden hand pouch in which the totally denervated pouch, means no blood supply and no nerve supply. Now coming to the Ferrell and Ivy pouch, it is same as the Bickel's pouch, but this totally denervated pouch is implanted or transplanted somewhere in the abdominal cavity. When it is transplanted in any other side of the abdominal cavity, there is a generation of the blood supply to that particular pouch. So it is helpful for understanding the role of hormones in the gastric secretion. Okay, hope everyone is getting the Pavlov's pouch, hidden hand pouch, Bickel's pouch, Ferrell and Ivy pouch. These are pouch or experiment is done in the dog for understanding the role of gastric acid secretion, role of different phases in the gastric acid secretion. Okay. One more, there is a Pavlov's sham feeding, mock feeding. This which is also called the mock feeding or false feeding. In the experiment, esophagus is cut. Esophagus transversely cut through the skin of neck, so any food which is ingested is not reaches till the stomach. Okay, reaches till the doesn't enter the stomach, it comes out to the upper cut end of the stomach. So animal gets all the pleasure of eating sensation, but the food does not reach the stomach. Okay, because vagus nerve is stimulated, because dog is feeling the pleasure of the eating. That is why the procedure is called the sham or mock feeding. This is very useful to study the cephalic phase of the gastric secretion. The lower end is also okay, means without food is does not enter the stomach, then also there is a gastric secretion. So there is a, this is useful to study the role of cephalic phase in the gastric secretion. Here in this picture you can appreciate there is a cut in the esophagus. The whatever the food dog is eating, it does not enter into the stomach, it comes out from the esophagus and does not reach till the stomach. Then also there is a secretion of the gastric juice. So here you can appreciate the effect of vagus nerve in this phase. Okay, hope everyone is getting me and getting the Pavlov's pouch, hidden hand pouch, Bickel's pouch, Ferrell and Ivy pouch, and the Pavlov's sham feeding. Now coming to the gastric analysis in man, through the Riley's tube, nasogastric tube, a thin flexible rubber tube is passed through the nose or mouth, and gastric juice can be collected from the stomach by the aspiration. Everyone knows the Riley's tube, which is placed and from the stomach it is aspirated. And gastroscopy, it is an instrument through which the interior of the stomach can be visualized, and it is useful for determining the ulcer and the cancerous growth. Okay, so till now I had completed the role of secretions and their control and their regulation, and experimental study which is done in the dog for understanding the various roles of the various phases, role of various phases in the gastric secretion. And now coming to the gastric analysis and the gastric fluid analysis, It is gastric juice, which is a colorless to grayish or yellowish watery fluid, which is a low specific gravity, secreted by the surface epithelium, gastric cells, and various glands of the gastric tract. Okay. Importance of detection. It is important for diagnosis of the gastric disease and assist in selection of therapy also, that is peptic ulcer. It measures the amount of acid produced between in patient with symptom of peptic ulcer, and diagnosis of Zollinger-Ellison syndrome, which is one kind of tumor of the pancreas, adenoma of the islet of Langerhans. So there is a hypersecretion of the gastric hypersecretion. So it is so gastric fluid analysis is diagnosis of peptic ulcer and diagnosis of the Ellison syndrome, as well as help in therapy also, selection of therapy. Now coming to the different method for the gastric analysis, one is the fractional test meal, in which the Rayleigh's tube is used for collection and aspirate the fluid from the stomach. This is followed by the gastric stimulation, giving a test meal, rice, gruel, black coffee, etc. The stomach contents are aspirated by the Rayleigh's tube at a different time period every 15 minutes for 2 hours, and then samples are analyzed for free and total acidity. The results are then represented by the graph. So see, this test is done by the Rayleigh's tube by gastric stimulant. Okay. Next is the tubeless gastric analysis, where the no tube is used, means no Rayleigh's tube or other tube is used, but other than that there is a use of dye. Okay. So use of orally administered ion exchange resin to detect the presence of hydrogen in gastric fluid. Here the marketed as a trade name Diagonix Blue. Here use a carboxyl acid cationic resin, means one resin is used for a determination of the hydrogen ion. This resin is with an innocent indicator dye, that is azure A coupled to it, means azure A is bind with the resin, and whenever it is secretion combined with hydrogen in gastric secretion combined with the resin, means whenever this dye is present inserted inside the stomach, this hydrogen ion binds with the resin, but this azure A ion, which is dyed and which is coupled to it, coupled to the this resin, are then absorbed and comes into the blood stream and excreted into the urine. So we have to calculate this azure A ion, because whatever the amount of hydrogen ion present in the gastric secretion bind with the resin, which is bind with the azure ion. So how much amount of the azure ion present in the urine is the amount of the hydrogen ion present in the gastric analysis. Okay. So there are various other methods. I had described only the 2 methods for the gastric analysis. Now coming to the applied physiology. Hope everyone is getting me, everyone is understanding the slides. Voice is clear, slides are clear to everyone. Okay, now coming to the next slide, that is applied physiology. Gastritis, inflammation of the gastric mucous membrane is called the gastritis. Okay, thank you Manju. Inflammation of the gastric mucous membrane is called the gastritis. There are 2 types, acute and chronic gastritis. Acute is characterized by inflammation of the superficial layers of mucous membrane and infiltration with leukocytes, neutrophils. And chronic gastritis involves the inflammation even the deeper layers. Okay, acute means superficial layer is inflamed, and chronic when deeper layers is inflamed and infiltration with more lymphocytes. It results in atrophy of the gastric mucosa with loss of chief cells and parietal cells of the glands. So in chronic gastritis there are chances of the gastric atrophy. So therefore the secretion of gastric juice is decreased. Okay. Now coming to the next slide. Cause of acute gastritis. Irritant include aspirin and other NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs corticosteroid and alcohol, caffeine. So these are the exercise irritants for the gastric mucosa in long term use. Ingestion of the corrosive substance, alkali or acid, and food contamination like microorganism. Okay, so these are the causes of the acute and manifestation: headache, mild epigastric discomfort, abdominal pain, nausea, anorexia, vomiting, belching, heartburn or sore taste in the mouth. If perforation occurs, signs of peritonitis. Okay, now coming to the chronic gastritis. Causes: H. pylori infection, Helicobacter pylori infection, consumption of more alcohol, long-term use of NSAIDs, or autoimmune type of the chronic gastritis. What is the chronic autoimmune gastritis? There is extensive multifocal therapy, atrophic gastritis, and it is endemic in some parts of world, example Japan. And pathogenesis: autoantibodies to gastric glands, parietal cells, and gland destruction and mucosal atrophies. Obviously, there is a less secretion, less production of acid, intrinsic factor, and pathology variable: gland loss, atrophy, intestinal metaplasia, dysplasia, and metaplastic epithelium. If severe parietal cells, there is a hypochlorhydria or achlorhydria. Achlorhydria means there is a no secretion of HCl. Hypochlorhydria means there is less secretion of the HCl, or hypergastриnemia. Okay, and more in the gastrin is more in the blood, because it does not come from blood into the stomach. And what will be the prognosis? There are 2 to 4% risk of developing the gastric carcinoma. So this is the gastritis. Now coming to the this is the features of the gastritis, that is nausea, vomiting, headache, feeling of discomfort, feeling of headache, indigestion, anorexia. Okay, gastric atrophy: it is a condition in which the muscles of stomach shrink and become weak, and there is a glands also shrink, a deficiency of the gastric juice caused by the loss of gastric glands. Now coming to the peptic ulcer. Ulcer means the erosion of surface of any organ, and whenever it is present in the stomach, it is called a gastric ulcer. There is a shedding or sloughing of the inflamed necrotic tissue that lines the organ, because whenever there is any kind of irritation, any kind of disease, firstly the inflammation occurs, but when there is shedding of that inflamed tissue, there is a there may be occurrence of the ulcer, that is called the peptic ulcer. When it is present in the stomach, it is called gastric ulcer, but when it is present in the duodenum, it is called the duodenal ulcer. Okay, what are the causes? Helicobacter pylori infection, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, long-term use of the drugs, and mental stress, any kind of mental stress, and smoking, alcohol consumption, and it is sometimes hereditary in origin also. Okay, now coming to the symptoms of stomach ulcer or the gastric ulcer or the peptic ulcer: nausea with vomiting, dark or black colored stool as a result of bleeding, vomiting of blood, loss of weight, feeling bloated or hot burning sensation. Cancer of stomach cancer, also known as the gastric cancer, is cancer developing from the lining of stomach, and because the lymphatic vessels of mucous membrane submucosa are in continuity in the stomach, so there is a possible for the cancer travel or the metastasis into the different parts of the stomach. Now coming to the Zollinger-Ellison syndrome, it is an adenoma of the or the tumor of the pancreas, where the Langerhans islet of the Langerhans secrete the more amount of the gastrin, so there is a more amount of the hydrochloric acid secretion, so there may be formation of the ulcer. And clinical symptoms is the abdominal pain, chronic diarrhea, dyspepsia, weight loss, or the GI bleeding. Okay, so this is all about the stomach. Hope everything it is clear to everyone. Now coming to our assessment. So please answer the question. Hope everyone is getting the slide. So please answer the question. Answer this question. What is the large and central portion of stomach is called? One word answer. These are the one word answer. What is the large and central portion of stomach is called? Who is going to answer? I'm unable to see the comments in the comment section, so I'm trying to visualize it. Okay, what is the Kiran, Ronak, so many had answered the large and central person of stomach. And what acid is secreted by which cells? HCl secreted by which cells? Specific cells of the pyloric gland. Please answer all of these questions. Specific cells of pyloric gland. Okay, Rajendra Vaishnav, so many has answered the question of HCl is secreted by the oxyntic cells and the parietal cells, and large and central portion of stomach is called the body. Now coming to the third question, specific cells of the G cells. Okay, very good, Melanie. Now coming to the next question, pepsinogen is secreted by which cells? Pepsinogen is secreted by which cells? Who is answering the question? Pepsinogen is secreted by which cells? Cheap cell, Sakshi Ahuja, very good. And the intrinsic factor is secreted by which cell? Program is not responding properly. Again and again telling me to wait.
development, thank you for choosing freeconferencecall.com. You're helping people around the world communicate for free. There are 105 participants in the conference.
I'm unable to see the comment section still. Okay, so in pepsinogen is secreted by chief cells and intrinsic factor is secreted by which cells? Okay, and which glands are fewer in number in the stomach? Chitra, Sakshi, Rakesh, Palak. Everyone is answering. Parietal cells, intrinsic factor secreted by parietal cells. Which glands are fewer in number in the stomach? Who is going to answer? Which gland are fewer in number in the stomach? Okay, Pranjal is saying, ma'am, screen is not visible. Okay, I am asking, can you able to hear my voice? Which gland are fewer in number in stomach? Are you able to hear my voice? Which glands are fewer in number in stomach? Cardiac gland. Okay, good. Which enzyme? Takrani, Meenakshi, Adhyasa, Nikita, everyone is answering. Very good. This is the cardiac gland. Which enzyme helps in carbonic acid formation in HCl secretion mechanism? Okay, Amritmay, Rushali, Chitra, everyone is answering. That is carbonic anhydrase. Okay, Sakshi Ahuja, very good. Means everyone is attending my class. Everyone is getting my lecture. Thank you. Now, 3 phases of the gastric regulation. Okay, Komal, Shraddha, Lipika, everyone is answering. Now, coming to the next question, what are the 3 phases? Cephalic, Falguni is answering. What is the next phase? Cephalic phase. Another 2 phases. What are the other 2 phases? Cephalic phase. And what are the other? Punmita, Falguni, gastric phase. Nikita, very good. Soumya, very good. What are third phase? What is the third phase? Gastric phase, cephalic phase, intestinal. Shruti Agrawal, very good. So these are the 3 phases: cephalic, gastric, and intestinal. Okay. SAM feeding is important for assessment of which regulation of which phase? SAM feeding, which is also called the mock feeding. SAM feeding is important for the assessment of cephalic phase. I am telling you answer because there is no food in the stomach, then also there is a secretion which is totally under the nervous control. So whenever there is a vagotomy, there is no secretion. So SAM feeding is important for assessment of the cephalic phase. Now last question, stimulating factor for the gastric secretion. 3, any 3? A stimulating factor for the gastric secretion. Everyone is answering. Shambhavi, Vaishnav, Shreya, Chakrani, Meenakshi. Gastrin, okay, very good. One factor is the gastrin for stimulating the gastric secretion. What are the two factors? Vagal stimulation, very good, and histamine. Okay, so I'm getting all the answer of all the question. So this is assessment of for my own lecture. I'm happy, so everyone is answering of my question. I think I should finish my lecture here. So I want to say thank you to everyone. I want to say thank you to all of you. I want to say thank you to all the doctors, all the heroes, all the nurses, all the health workers who are working in this critical situation, for their bravery, for their spirit, for their dedication, for their passion, for their commitment, for their grit. So they are also the future heroes. So I am also want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you.